Phil.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to touch on some of the future challenges for policing, if I may. Your predecessor highlighted that economic crime is on the rise. He described fraud as having exploded. RUSI have recently come out with a report saying that it's an epidemic. Professor Mark Button has called it a tsunami. Lots of exciting words there suggesting it's getting worse and worse and worse. Is it a high enough priority for the police at the moment?
No, fraud isn't a high enough priority. I think we're all aware 40 to 50% of crime is fraud. 1% of officers are engaged on dealing with fraud. I don't believe it's an issue we'll be able to investigate our way out of without significant resources being put into fraud investigation. So it is very much for me about how we prevent it, how we work with other parts of both public and private sector to actually prevent large parts of this fraud, and how we hold not just policing but others to account for what is a massive problem, fully accepted. Are police doing enough around it? No. Will they say they don't have the resources to do much more about it? Yes. That is a matter for government to decide whether significant resource should be put into the investigation of fraud.
What does good look like for you?
Good looks like a significantly less number of frauds being reported. Good looks like the organisation of those behind the fraudsters being investigated, much like serious and organised crime, much like county lines, because a lot of these frauds that we see are of a type. Good for me, it looks like a banking system and a financial system that does far more than it does now to actually prevent these issues happening. And good looks like those in charge of tech companies such as your Googles, your Amazons, etc., who are doing some good work around this, doing even more around this to prevent those fraudsters actually being allowed to use the internet to do this.
We have, thank you. We have a wide range of organisations operating in the fraud space at the moment. City of London Police is a lead force, ROCUs around the country, Action Fraud, NFIB, public-private partnerships you've mentioned already. But we also have a challenge that a lot of the legislation in this space is quite specialist, and not all officers are trained up in it, understandably. To your mind, is this a training and skills issue, or is it around the structures that we have to operate with currently to deal with the problem?
I think the conversation needs to be had around the structures to deal with this. I mean, a response officer carrying a busy workload is working 3 shifts, is not the right person to be carrying frauds in this country. It needs someone who's got a better level of expertise than that. I think we also need to look at the fact that a lot of the fraud issues are exceptionally complex, and are we recruiting the right people to actually deal with those types of frauds? Again, the Commissioner Mark Rowley, was a speech that he gave last week, mentioned the fact that he'd like to recruit different people to be police officers. Whether those recruited people are police officers or not police officers, we certainly need to ensure that we're getting people with different skills to investigate some of these difficult frauds as a country, because within policing, people aren't necessarily recruited with that sort of mindset. So we need to look at how we can better capture people who understand those systems better. It is a very difficult market because policing will not pay as much as private industry, so a lot of the good people who policing do take on after a short period move into private industry for far more money than they get within policing. So I know that the City of London Police are working with tech companies and financial institutions to see if we can have some sort of reciprocal approach to loaning staff either way, with different skills to come in and assist how police investigate. But I'll come back to the initial point. The scale is such that prevention, not investigation, has got to be at the forefront of this.
I'm minded to agree with you there. Just looking at funding challenges, which are obviously quite difficult at the moment. In the US, they have, and in other countries, they have the model where economic crime agencies can hang on to some of the funds they capture and reinvest that in economic crime policing. Is that something you're interested in?
I mean, policing does keep some money as part of POCA and seized assets, etc., percentage of such with CPS and others. Yes, I think it is an incentivisation for policing to do more around fraud. I think we need to be careful that they don't chase the money as opposed to chasing what the biggest risks and threats are that are in their force areas or in the NCA or in the ROCUs.